What's up, guys? Ryan here. This is my full card breakdowns and predictions for UFC 314, Volksnovski versus Lopes. Before we jump into it, I just kind of want to recap Vegas 105. I did not do good. I was 6-6 on picks, and I put way more faith in some of these fighters' IQs, and it was an atrocious night. I mean, everything was all over the place. You had major upsets, and it was just crazy for, I think, a lot of people out there in this community. But, we move on, we learn from it, shit happens. As far as bets, I only had a couple out there, and neither one of them hit. I had a straight bet on, the Fox's name, the guy that fought Martin Buday, which let's not get started on that fucking fight, but yeah, that one lost. And then I had a little parlay with Joe Anderson Brito and Lerone Murphy. And, Brito, he got stuck on bottom for the entire fucking fight and he couldn't get up. So, it is what it is. Shit happens. We just kind of move on and, keep that optimism alive and look forward to this week. About this week, I'll actually be down there in Miami for this UFC event. This is going to be my fourth overall. My first ever was all the way back in 2018. I was at UFC 236 up in Atlanta when Adesanya fought Gastelum, and then Max Holloway fought Dustin Poirier. So that was pretty exciting to be my first ever event. And then since then, I've been to UFC 273 in Jacksonville when Volk fought Korean Zombie. And then also that card had Chimaev versus Burns, so I got to witness, that fucking banger of a fight. After that, I was in Jacksonville again for, I can't remember the name, but it was Emmett versus Topuria, which, again, it was a fucking amazing fight to be there in, person for. So this is going to be my fourth event, making the trip down to Miami. I'm leaving Friday or early morning. Me and my girlfriend are making, kind of like a little weekend getaway with it. So I'll be coming home, like late Sunday night. And like I said in my last video, I live in coastal Georgia. So it's not too terrible of a drive to, get down there for like a little quick weekend. So definitely looking forward to that. So without further ado, let's jump into these breakdowns. All right, first up, we've got Nora Cornole versus Haley Cohen. Nora is 8-2. She is 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, and she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Cohen is 7-3. She's 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, and she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. And I'm not going to spend too much time breaking this down because honestly, I think Nora Cornole is a decent prospect, and Haley Cohen just really isn't. She got into the UFC off a split decision on the Contender Series, and since then she's lost to Jamie Lynn Horth, who, even though Jamie Lynn Horth came into the UFC undefeated, I didn't think she was ever really that good. So losing to her like that, it's not a good look. And standing up, I don't think that Cohen offers too much for Nora. She stands, southpaw, and I noticed when she was fighting Jamie Lynn Horth, she was eating like clean straight rights, and that's pretty much Nora's strong point. She has a really nice straight right, and she also has really good kicks from the outside, and just overall like a better striker than Cohen. Much better vision for it too. Now, Nora can be taken down and kind of controlled against the cage. Whenever she's put in the clinch, she's not really the best at getting her underhooks, but she does throw like a ton of knees in the clinch. And she put so Melissa Mullins, it wasn't a clinch knee, but she has some vicious knees of the body and actually put her down in that fight. So Haley Cohen can kind of control her up against the cage, and she'd probably be winning most of those like underhook and clinch battles. But if she gets her down, she doesn't have the best ground control. She had Jamie Lynn Horth down, and she was stacked way too high, and then Horth was able to get out from underneath her. And Nora's actually really good at that. She's pretty good at finding sweeps, and if she can't get a sweep, she's good at working through her progressions. Like she'll get to a hip and then get to her knees and then slowly work her way up, and then like when she gets back to her feet, it's going to be all Nora all day long. So I'm picking Nora to win, probably going to decision like most women's MMA fights. Not a knock on him. It's just statistic. That's pretty much what's going to happen. So Nor to win by decision. Next up, we're looking at Tresean Gore versus Marco Tulio. Tresean, he is 5-2. He is 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Marco Tulio is 13-1. He's 6 foot also with a 74.5-inch reach, and he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. I don't see a scenario where Tresean Gore wins this fight. I think Marco Tulio is a step ahead of him pretty much anywhere this fight can go. Gore has, some decent wrestling. He works, really good behind his jab, and he has like solid leg kicks. But Tulio, he's better at countering. He's better at striking. Cody Brundage actually knocked Tresean Gore out with a counter off of one of those leg kicks. And if Cody Brundage can do that, I think Marco Tulio can do it. And as far as wrestling goes, I think Tulio actually has better takedowns. He has a really solid body lock takedown. Gore, he can get his, but, he's got some good ground control. But he's not out there. He's not like, that next level wrestler where I think he's going to have a, leg up on most of his opponents. So it should be fairly close. But I think Tulio is just a tiny bit ahead, at least in that wrestling department. And as far as Gore's opponents in the UFC, he lost to Cody Brundage. He got his ass whooped by Brian Battle. And then he beat Antonio Tricali and Josh Fremd, who, let's face it, both those guys fucking suck, and they probably shouldn't be in the UFC either. So, strength of schedule, even though Marco Tulio's only had one fight in the UFC himself, and that was against Ihor, who, pretty much everybody knocks Ihor out nowadays. So that's not the best look, but, going beyond that, Tulio has way more experience and way better wins than Gore does. So give me Tulio to win. I think he's live for a finish in this one. I think he's not really a submission artist. He has one under his record, but I think he's a good enough striker to be able to knock Gore out. Gore's pretty tough, so he might hang in there toward decision. And if it starts getting into the later fight, I also trust Tulio's cardio a lot more than Gore, because I think after the Brian Battle fight, he admitted that he was terrified to get gassed like that again. So he, tends to slow his pace down a little bit so he doesn't, fade as fast. So Marco Tulio, I haven't seen any gaping holes in his cardio. So if he can't knock him out, I think he puts a pace on him and dominates, the second and the third rounds and makes it a clear decision. So give me Tulio to win, probably by decision, very live for that finish. Next up, we got Sumadarji versus Mitch Raposo. Sumadarji is 16-7. He's 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Mitch Raposo is 9-2. He is 5'5" with a 64.5-inch reach. He's also 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and Sumadarji is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. My bad. I kind of skipped over that part, but fuck it. This feels like a really good underdog spot. Sumadarji is a really good striker. He's really long for the division. He has a really solid jab. He's really good at fighting from the outside. But he can be taken down, and Mitch Raposo has pretty good wrestling of his own when he actually chooses to use it, which is the big fucking question here: is he going to do the right thing? Once he gets opponents down, Mitch Raposo actually does have decent submissions. He can get top control and work in arm triangles, and he can also get to the back in transitions, and he has a couple rear naked chokes under his name. And Sumadarji has been submitted a ton of fucking times. And as far as his knockout ability goes, on the regional scene he was just kind of knocking everybody out. Since he's been in the UFC, the only person he's knocked out is Malcolm Gordon, and let's be honest, Malcolm Gordon fucking sucks. So I don't really rate that high. I think he's only ever beaten one other person in the UFC. Other than that, he's been submitted and knocked out himself, and just it's not a good look. So I'm going to be picking Mitch Raposo. Like I said, it does worry me because he doesn't always do what you need or what you would expect him to do. And I can see a situation where, he can't get on the inside on Sumadarji, and, Sumadarji just keeps his range and uses his long jab and keeps frustrating Raposo and, kind of takes it on the scorecards. Hope that doesn't happen. I think he can get on the inside, and, he's at a huge reach disadvantage. So I don't see him, trying to, play around on the feet too much like he was doing with Andre Lima. So hopefully he, realizes he's got to get, this win in his career back on track, and he does what he needs to do. And he has a clear path to victory with his wrestling and submissions. So I'm going with Raposo. Might regret it. Might be a great fucking dog call. We'll find out, I guess. Moving on, we got Rodriquez Dumas versus Mikhail Olajaychuk. Dumas is 10-2. He is 6'2" with a 79-inch reach, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Olajaychuk is 19-9. He is 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach, and he is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. That record does not look good for Mikhail Olajaychuk, but I actually like him in this matchup, and that's mostly because I don't think Rodriquez Dumas is quite there yet. He shows really good potential. He's really athletic, and he's learning as he goes. I mean, I think he started off as like a known street fighter where he had some skills, but he was just beating up fucking people that don't know how to fight. So you see flashes of his improvements. He uses his jab really good and his low kicks, and he's got okay wrestling both offensively and defensively. But he can kind of be a little bit low output at times, and sometimes he does overextend, especially when, he throws his straights. He leaves that opening for those counters. So going up against someone like Olajaychuk, who has really good combinations in striking overall, I just don't like this matchup for him. Olajaychuk, he's really fucking tough too. We've seen him hurt and dropped, and he finds a way to fight back in here. And if you look at the people he's losing to, he got submitted by Michel Pereira, which, that's completely fucking excusable. He was submitted by Caio Barajo, which, again, that's, very, very forgivable. He, got his arm broke against Kevin Holland, which, on paper, Kevin Holland's not a bad fighter, just when he chooses to show up or not. And then he lost, a back-and-forth battle with Sharon Magomedov. So, not terrible losses. It's not a good look to be losing all that much, but I don't think Dumas is on that same level. So, definitely picking Olajaychuk to win this. Like I said, I think he does way better work. He's a little bit faster in his combinations, a little bit snappier in his punches. He keeps his chin tucked really well, and he, kind of mixes up. He'll throw in some body shots, and at the end of the day, he's just a tougher, fighter. He's more of a dog. Now, I don't know if he's going to get Dumas out of there, because, Dumas actually has, a really good chin. He got knocked out by No Sultan, but I think, if I remember that correctly, he got, badly eye-poked, and then the ref didn't step in, and he was more focused on that and got caught and TKO'd. So, I mean, that is what it is. Like I said, Dumas, he's showing improvements. He's probably going to be decent one day, but he's kind of running out of time. I mean, he's approaching 30. So if he doesn't get it together in the next few years, it might not ever be there. So give me Olajaychuk to win. I think he is a favorite. So I can kind of see that. He's a 2-1. I don't know if it should be that wide, just because he has 1-4 in his last 5 fights. But I can kind of see it with the level of losses versus the level that Dumas is at. So that's my pick. Mikhail Olajaychuk. He's probably going to win it by decision. Pretty live for a knockout. I mean, the dude does have pretty solid power. So we'll see on Saturday. Next up, we got Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. Elkins is 29-11. He is 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Erosa is 30-11. He is 6'1" with a 74.5-inch reach, and he is also 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Now, everything I'm about to tell you, take it with a grain of salt, because I am admittedly a huge Julian Erosa fan. I'm a little bit biased towards him. I usually always pick him in his fights. I think I faded him like a couple times here and there, and like it fucking hurts my soul to do it. But yeah, so I'm biased towards, I'm a Juicy J believer. But Darren Elkins, he's a jack of all trades. Like, he's got really good striking, really good offensive and defensive grappling, and he kind of made a name for himself by being the damage. Like, he takes one hell of an ass whooping, and he does not quit. He tends to break his opponents by out dogging them, putting pressure on them, and using his cardio as a weapon, and then kind of like taking over as fights go. So that's always been kind of his style. He takes an ass whooping to give you one back even harder. Julian Erosa. I've said this before, you got to kill him to get him the fuck out of there. He can be knocked out. People say he's a little bit chinny, but if you watch like his knockouts, he's getting hit hard and clean, like early in the fights. If you just rock him and let him survive, it kind of awakens him, and he starts to warm up, and then he starts to take over because he has really good knees. He's got really good striking. Like, he's got some power behind his shots. He's got his own like offensive and defensive like grappling, and he's also like really known for his front chokes, which everybody knows guillotines and shit like that. They don't have a very high success rate at this level, but Julian Erosa makes them work. He has several guillotines to his name. He's got fucking Dorises and Anacondas, and just like the dude is like freakishly good with his long arms at wrapping up necks. So I don't think Darren Elkins has enough power. He's not known for that like one shot, KO. I don't think he has the power to put Julian Erosa clean out. So I think he starts to hurt him, and that just kind of makes Julian Erosa more aware, and he starts building into the fight. And I see him taking over as he goes, and like landing his own damage with those like vicious knees and his clean straights. So I'm picking Erosa to win. I can see a scenario where as the fight gets later on, where Erosa didn't get knocked out, and he's kind of building into his own, and he starts tagging up Darren Elkins, and Elkins shoots, like a bad takedown to try and, save himself from getting hurt. And Erosa locking up, those long arms and getting like his own little front choke. I can see that happen, but I could also see him winning a decision based on damage. Because like I said, he, as the fight goes on, he just gets more and more dangerous as he gets more and more hurt. So, picking Erosa, like I said, take it with a grain of salt, because I am a huge Julian Erosa fan. And I'm definitely looking forward to watching him fight in person, finally, after all these years of, being a fan of his. So that's my pick, Julian Erosa. Take it with a grain of salt. We move on. Next up, we got Chase Hooper taking on Jim Miller. Hooper is 15-3-1. He is 6'1" with a 74-inch reach, and he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Jim Miller is 38-18. He's 5'8" with a 71-inch reach, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And I'm definitely on the Chase Hooper side here. I love Jim Miller. He's an OG vet. He's been in the UFC forever. And he's really good at pretty much everything. He's got power in his hands. He's good on the ground. He has a really good BJJ. And he's kind of been, I don't want to, downplay anything he's done in his career by using the term gatekeeper. But that's kind of the role he's been playing nowadays. It's like he kind of separates that upper echelon from all these up-and-comers. If you can get past, Jim Miller, you're probably going to have some success in your career. And I think Chase Hooper does that. He's going to have a decent size advantage over Jim Miller. And Chase Hooper, he's been really, coming into his own since he's moved up to lightweight. He's looked really good, even striking now. Like, I can't unsee him dropping Borishev in that, last matchup. So, his striking is kind of starting to match his ground game, because he's always had, like, really high level, like BJJ. Decent takedowns. Once he's on the ground, his scrambles are, like, amazing. His control is great. His back takes are great. Like, he does everything good down there. Why I think he has success is, I know this is a long time ago, but people like Vince Pichel and Joe Selecki had tons of success on the ground against Jim Miller. And I don't think that Joe Selecki or even Vince Pichel have the grappling transitions and control that Chase Hooper does. So I don't think he's gonna, be able to submit Jim Miller, because Jim Miller's only been submitted I think twice in his career, and one of them I think that was Charles Oliveira years ago. So he's really good defensive. I don't know if Chase Hooper submits him. If he does, it's gonna be really fucking impressive. But I think him getting Jim Miller down and just controlling him, and using his ground and pound and everything else, will be enough to even take a decision. So Chase Hooper should definitely win this fight if he looks anything like he has been in his past few fights. He should get past the Jim Miller test. It hurts my heart because I love Jim Miller. Like I said, I've been watching the UFC for fucking 20 years now, and Jim Miller's kind of always been that staple. And he's still got some career left in him. I don't think he wants to retire anytime soon, and it's not like he's, again, not trying to knock him, but it's not like he's Tony Ferguson, taking fucking 7 losses in a row and getting knocked out and just, getting badly beaten in there. He's still competitive. He's still winning fights. So I think we will, get to see Jim Miller for at least a few more years till, he decides to move on. But in the meantime, I definitely think Chase Hooper wins this one. Next up, we got Virna Jandiroba versus Xiaonan Yan. Virna is 21-3. She is 5'3" with a 64-inch reach, and she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Yan is 19-4. She is 5'5" with a 63-inch reach, and she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this fight. This is basically your classic striker versus grappler, and it's basically a pick your side. If you think Yan, stops Virna's takedowns and, grappling offense, you go with her because she's clearly going to outstrike, Virna. If you think Virna gets her down, you go with her because she is very live to submit Yan. That's basically how this fight's going to play out, one of those two ways. I'm on the Virna side. I think she's carrying a lot more momentum than Yan. And if you look back at, Yan's previous fights, she was taken down and controlled by Weili Zhang. I think she landed 6 or 7 takedowns on her. Something crazy like that. She was also choked, pretty much unconscious between round 1 and 2 or some shit like that. I can't remember which one it was. She was basically fucking put out, and they had to wake her up in between rounds, and then she still went on to lose. I think she probably should have gotten TKO'd in that fight too, and she lost the decision. I don't know how the fuck you lose every single way you can in one fight, but she did. She was also taken down and controlled by, I think, Carla Esparza was one of the ones in there that I had seen. She got her down and had success. I think she... Let me double check while I'm looking at this. Yeah, Carla Esparza TKO'd her. So she's shown that flaw in her defense, especially against a really good grappler. And like I said, Virna is she's coming into her own. I think she knows she doesn't have much time. She's 36. She doesn't have a whole lot of years ahead of her if she's going to try and make a push for that title shot, which I think she's in contention for, honestly. I mean, who else would you really kind of put over her right now? There's only a couple fighters that I can think of that, might deserve it more. But I think she knows that. I think she can make a statement here. And she's live for that submission. And it's either going to be that, she's going to either get her out of there, or she's going to, drag her down and control her and rinse and repeat for the whole duration of the fight and win it on the scorecards. Either way, definitely thinking she gets the W this weekend, and we move on. Moving on, we've got Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Ige is 18-9. He is 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, and he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Sean Woodson is 13-1-1. He's 6'2" with a 78-inch reach, and he is 4-0-1 in his last 5 fights. And I'm definitely on the side of Sean Woodson because I think this is going to decision. And I'm 90% sure that most of this fight is going to take place, striking, standing up. And if that's the case, I got to go with Sean Woodson because Dan Ige, he's really good on the inside. He's got solid boxing, and obviously he's got fucking dynamite in his hands. But dealing with Sean Woodson, if you're just going to strike with him, is a tough task. The guy is like freakishly tall for, the featherweight division. And, he's going to have a massive reach advantage, and he's nicknamed the Sniper for a reason. He's really good at finding fucking like straight shots down the middle and keeping in his range and sticking to the outside. And he's just historically very, very hard to hit. So I don't think Dan Ige is going to have too much success getting inside, his range on Woodson and landing like bombs like he's going to need to. And as far as like wrestling, Dan Ige doesn't have the greatest, takedown, accuracy compared to Sean Woodson's takedown defense, which is pretty damn good. I mean, he's ridiculously hard to get down. And I think if you're going to get him down and you're going to, kind of fucking wear him out, you got to kind of match his frame like, Julian Erosa. We'll get to him in a little bit. But Julian Erosa kind of, lasted in there. And then, he found a submission, with one of his legendary front chokes in like the third round, I think it was, against Woodson. And that was pretty much his only fucking defeat. Well, that is his only defeat. I think he has like a draw. So I don't think Dan Ige has that in his arsenal. I think it's going to, mostly be striking. And if that, like I said, if that's the case, you go with the better striker, and that's going to be Sean Woodson. So give me Woodson to win by decision. Next up, we got Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. Krylov is 30-9. He is 6'3" with a 77.5-inch reach. He has 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Reyes is 14-4. He's 6'4" with a 77-inch reach, and he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. And this is another spot where there's value on this underdog, because I think Reyes, gets a knockout here on, this coming weekend. Nikita Krylov, he's really good. I mean, he's got good striking, good grappling, fucking good wrestling, offensive and defensive. He's pretty much just, like a jack of all trades. But he has not been in the octagon in a couple years now, and I think it was injury related. I can't quite remember. So I don't like that layoff. Coming in against someone like Dominic Reyes, who, he's got his confidence back. He's starting to build momentum. He was on a really, steep decline there for a little while. He was getting knocked out, like, constantly. And you saw that, like, sigh of relief when he beat Dustin Jacoby. It was like the weight of the world was lifted off his fucking shoulders. And then you kind of saw flashes of the Dominic Reyes of old when he fought Anthony Smith. So I think, this is a really bad matchup for someone that has been out of the octagon for that long. Coming back against someone who, is finally putting his shit back together and, gaining momentum. And if you look at, just look at Krylov's last couple fights. He's a really fast starter, but he tends to keep his head stationary on the center line. And it took, like the first exchange against Ryan Spann, and he ate a really clean jab and like kind of staggered back. And the same thing against Volkan Ozdemir, the fight before that. He comes out and he starts hot, but he leaves himself open for these counters, and he got hurt, and he had to like step back and like kind of reevaluate his approach, and then he started trying to work in a takedown. Now if that happens here, Dominic Reyes has really good takedown defense. He has really good balance, and throughout his career, he's been able to keep the fight standing. And, he's only fought a couple, like, high-level wrestlers. But even in those fights, I mean, like, his defense, like, held up. So, I can see him, countering Krylov on one of those, like, fast starts. And I think if you get countered by someone like Reyes, he's probably going to knock you out. I mean, the dude has, like, dynamite in his hands. Like, he could put anybody down that he pretty much connects with. And he also has really technical striking. So you put those two together, someone like Krylov who likes to come in and, like start hot and start swinging, but he's there to get countered. I think he gets knocked out, and I think he gets knocked out in the first round. So give me Reyes to win. I'm pretty sure he's going to get a finish here. As the fight goes on, I don't really like, Reyes too much after that, but yeah, I think he gets done, and I think it's early. Moving on, we've got Yair Rodriquez taking on Patricio Pitbull. Yair is 19-5. He is 5'11" with a 71-inch reach, and he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Patricio is 36-7. He is 5'6" with a 65.5-inch reach, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And I'm picking Yair Rodriquez to win. I kind of went back and forth on this one. I thought Pitbull, might have success with the grappling, because we've seen, Yair kind of exposed in that department. But the more I look into it, who is Rodriguez really losing to out there? Max Holloway, Volk, and Ortega. And if you look at that Ortega fight, that was in Mexico City. It was at Elevation. And Yair put a, fucking beating on Ortega in round 1, trying to get him out of there. I think he landed almost 50 significant strikes in just the first round. I think he gassed himself out. I know it looked really bad. By the time they got to the next round, Ortega had started taking over because he's a tough motherfucker, so he survived that onslaught. And then once Rodriguez was out of gas, Ortega took over and ultimately submitted him. I think it was the 3rd round. So I think that might be a one-off. I don't think he gasses that hard by round 3 to where Pitbull's able to lock in a submission or have a lot of success in that grappling. And like I said, I was originally trying to pick Pitbull because he's really good everywhere. He's a good striker, both offensive, defensive. He can grapple offensive, defense. And if you look at his record, it's a perfect fucking split. He's got he has 36 wins. It's 12 by knockout, 12 by submission, and 12 by decision. So the guy can do it all and win everywhere he needs to win. But I don't know if he's coming into the UFC at the right time in his career. He's about to be 38. I think he's almost 38 years old. So jumping in there with someone as dangerous as Yair, who he's got a nice size, height, and pretty massive fucking reach advantage. And Yair, his specialty is he wings kicks. I mean, he throws all kinds of crazy techniques with them. So add on, how much extra reach on top of what he already has, staying at his kicking distance. So I think he can frustrate Pitbull from the outside, and I think he's going to hurt him with some of these kicks. Now, there's a really good chance that he can knock out Pitbull. He's been TKO'd a couple times. One of them was pretty recent. So, that's always live with someone as dangerous as Yair. And let's say Pitbull does, have some success in his wrestling, and he's able to get Rodriguez down. He is not stagnant on his back. If you watch his fights, he's trying to throw up triangles and shit like that. But he's also throwing vicious elbows from the bottom. He does not let you get comfortable. He does not let you, kind of focus and work towards through your progressions and then try and find these submissions. He's just always attacking. So I think he's gonna, have way more success on the feet. And if he does get taken down, I think he hurts Pitbull there too, to where he doesn't get settled in and he's able to, get off much damage or, find a submission of his own. So, give me Rodriguez to win. Like I said, I think it's just not the best point in his career for him to move over to the UFC and especially jump in at this level. So, picking Rodriguez to win, I really think he gets it done. Probably a decision. Very live for that knockout too. So, we will see. Moving on, we've got Bryce Mitchell taking on Gene Silva. Mitchell is 17-2. He is 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Silva is 15-2. He is 5'7" with a 69-inch reach, and he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. And the obvious, fucking take here is Silva's gonna knock Bryce out. I mean, that's pretty much what he's been doing to everybody. He has power in his hands. He's dog tough, and he also has really accurate fucking clean shots, which sometimes it's not always how hard you hit someone, it's where you hit them. We see shit like that with like snipers, like, you know, Roofy and fucking Conor McGregor and Sean Woodson. You know, it doesn't look like they're necessarily like putting a lot of power into those shots, but where they're connecting is just like fucking pinpoint. Silva does have that power, but he's also really accurate. So I think it's like, you know, one of those perfect storms, which is kind of why he's been on the fucking tear that he has. I don't know if that obvious take is what's going to happen. I'm actually kind of liking Bryce Mitchell to win this fight just because we saw Silva taken down by Charles Jourdain. And I know not every fight's the same. You can't always, you know, look at, oh, well, this person had success here, so that means that's a, you know, fucking flaw or whatever. But I can't unsee that because Bryce Mitchell is ridiculously good on the ground. If he gets you down, he's going to hold you there. And seeing how easy Charles Jourdain was able to get, you know, Silva down with, you know, like single legs, and he drug him down on the ground at one point. Like, it looked really simple. I can only imagine if, you know, someone with the skills of Bryce Mitchell was able to get to his leg and get him down. I don't think Silva's getting back up for that round. Now, we did see, you know, Mitchell get like fucking sent into the nether realm by fucking Josh Emmett a couple fights ago, and it was a bad look, especially going up against another power puncher. But I think he's gonna be a little bit smarter in his approach, and I don't know, like, it does kind of worry me. I'm thinking he might be a little timid and not want to engage. Like, it was easier for him to bounce back against Kron Gracie, who offers nothing in the fucking striking department. So we didn't see him hesitate to go in that fight. Like, he looked really sharp on the feet. I don't know if he's going to be a little worried about that knockout coming again against someone like Silva. But, you know, in previous interviews, Bryce Mitchell has said, you know, he doesn't fear anybody. He's lost in, you know, in training. He's lost in his life. He's been knocked out. Like, he's not, like, terribly worried about it. So I want to take that as he states it, and I want to pick him. And I think he really does, like, get him down, and, you know, he can submit him. I don't know if Silva's ever been submitted in his career, but Bryce Mitchell is that, like, you know, he's that step up in that grappling offense. Now, Silva's with a really good team. He's with the Fighting Nerds, so I'm pretty sure he's seen a lot of these submissions and, you know, how to defend them in training. But, you know, that doesn't always translate, you know, into that same exact moment in the cage. So I'm gonna pick Bryce Mitchell. I'm kind of nervous about it because, like I said, I don't know his state of mind. I don't know if he's going to be nervous. I don't know if, you know, Silva does catch him, or if he has, if Silva has any success, like, stopping takedowns and keeps it on the feet, like, he's gonna hurt Bryce. Like, I don't think it's even close in the striking, but I think that grappling is, you know, solid enough that it's going to be the deciding factor. I'm probably really going to regret this fucking pick, but I'm picking Bryce Mitchell to get it done against Gene Silva, and I think it's just another, kind of like we saw, you know, the other night with fucking Pat Sabatini and Joe Anderson Brito. Everybody thought Brito was just going to come in there and, you know, fucking, like, floor Pat Sabatini because he had been knocked out before, and that's not what happened. You know, he demonstrated that, like, really good ground control, and that's what dictated that entire fight. I don't know if we see it to that same level, but Bryce is also a big guy. Like, he's got a decent size advantage. Like, I watched him at the face-offs, and, you know, he's got some height on Silva, and he's really good at using that, you know, height as, like, leverage on the ground, and he's really good at using that length to, like, wrap up legs and wrists and shit, too. So, I really hope he pulls it through. I might look like a fucking genius by picking him, or I might really regret it. We're going to find out. Either way, you know, we move on. Moving on to the co-main event. We've got Michael Chandler taking on Paddy Pimblett. Chandler is 23-9. He is 5'8" with a 71.5-inch reach. He is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Paddy is 22-3. He is 5'10" with a 73-inch reach, and he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. And this one's honestly kind of tough. It's another one of those like pick your spots type thing, because both fighters have, in my opinion, a very equally chance to win. I think Chandler can actually, knock out Pimblett because, Chandler, he's explosive. And he has decent striking at first. I mean, he does tend to kind of get mixed up in the crowd. And he wants to put on that, like flashy show. And he does shit that you wouldn't want him to do in order to win. So, that's always like a kind of worry. But he is, especially early, he's very dangerous. And Paddy has, he's a pretty good striker. He's got some power in his hands. But it's been a, criticism for pretty much his entire fucking UFC career. He gets hit. He has his chin up in the air. And, you got a slightly shorter guy who, he's basically punching up at that target. It spells disaster. So if Chandler, connects cleanly with Paddy Pimblett, I think he can knock him out. Now, I know, according to, Paddy, Scousers don't get knocked out. But, that's, anybody can get knocked the fuck out. So there's always that scenario. Now, Paddy, his bread and butter is definitely his grappling. He doesn't have like high level wrestling to get the fight to the ground, but when he's there, he's fucking amazing. He can pretty much submit anybody. So if he gets Chandler down, he's very live to submit him. Now, Chandler also, he's only ever been submitted once in his career, and ironically, it was by Dustin Poirier, even though he's been in there with, like Charles Oliveira and shit. So, go figure. Dustin Poirier is the one who fucking chokes him out. So, he's shown, pretty good defense in that area. But again, like, Paddy's just fucking, he's really good with BJJ. So, he's definitely live for that submission. So, it's like, is Chandler going to catch him? Or is Paddy going to work in, get him to the ground? And I think this is a 5-round fight. So that's another question, because, Chandler, he tends to, start slowing down, but he never stops. He's one of those, like, weird cardio guys where he's looking physically exhausted, but he's still fucking throwing with power. No matter, what round it is, no matter what's going on, he's still trying to get you out of there. And that's been another big criticism with Paddy. He looked like he was starting to fade against Tony Ferguson. So you gotta favor Chandler if the fight starts to get extended. Now, the big question is Paddy Pimblett ready for that step up in competition, and is he that top 5 caliber? Because Chandler, he kind of debuted, and they threw him to the wolves. I mean, he fucking came in against Dan Hooker, and since then he's pretty much been facing the top of that division, and he's been losing. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you got to ask yourself, is Paddy on that level? Now, 2 years ago after the Jared Gordon fight, the answer probably would have been no. Like, a lot of people were thinking, this guy will probably never be a champion. He's never going to be, top caliber. He's going to be, maybe a top 10 fighter and not much past that. So, looking at his next couple fights, you got the Tony Ferguson, which, I mean, throw that one away. Tony Ferguson's, like, fucking out of here. He's kind of washed now. And then he did look really good against Bobby Green. Bobby Green did fucking, like, slip and get caught and put to sleep. So, take that with a grain of salt. So, is he good enough? I think he's good enough to get past Chandler. I think he can find, his takedowns and, do what he does on the ground. And like I said, even though Chandler has only been submitted like one time, I think Pimblett can actually find his own submission in this fight. So give me Paddy to win. I like him to get it done early. I think he can get Chandler out of there. And if not, I'm kind of worried for him because I don't think he's going to win a decision in the long run against someone who does not stop coming forward. So I'm picking Paddy. I'm thinking he gets him out of there in the first, second, or maybe third round by submission. So we move on. We've got the main event. Alex Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. Volkanovski is 26-4. He is 5'6" with a 71.5-inch reach. He is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Diego Lopes is 26-6. He is 5'11" with a 72.5-inch reach, and he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. And this was honestly tough, man. I mean, it's kind of, you would say, the changing of the guard, even though Volkanovski already lost his title. We already saw that. He's getting another chance at it versus another hungry up-and-comer who's, very fucking dangerous. 2 years ago, I would have said that this is Volkanovski, all day, every day. He was going to basically fucking school Lopes, and there wasn't really much that Lopes offers that Volkanovski hasn't seen at that high level. But with him taking 2 bad KO losses back-to-back like that against another guy with dynamite in his hands, I'm really worried for Volkanovski. And it sucks because I've been a Volkanovski fan since he's pretty much got to the UFC. And I don't want to see him get knocked out 3 fights in a row. But I really think it's going to happen again. I think age is a factor. Getting, knocked out twice in a row. If you even watched against Topuria, after the first, knockout from Islam, and he went into that, the Topuria fight, he kind of didn't look like the old Volkanovski. Like, he seemed a little bit, more hesitant, and he tried to, kind of keep range a little bit more. And I think he was worried about that, knowing that Topuria has, fucking knockout power, and he had just gotten knocked out. So I think he was a little bit more timid, and I can only imagine that it's probably just going to be amplified again against a very big, very powerful Diego Lopes. And Lopes is a fast starter. He's got power in his hands, and he's also pretty accurate, again, in the technical and the striking. Now, Lopes is really good at submissions, too. He's not really an offensive, wrestler, but, say, he starts landing a couple clean shots on Volk, and Volk has to resort to wrestling. Lopes is really good off his back. I mean, he's good at working arm bars and triangles, and we've seen Volk get caught in both of those by Ortega, and they were deep as fuck, and he survived. Somehow he got out of that really deep triangle, where his whole fucking head was turning purple. So, he definitely knows what he's doing on the ground, and he's determined. But I don't know if we get that same Volk. I hope we do, because like I said, I'm going to be there. I would love to see, Volkanovski put on a fucking masterclass again. But I'm really worried. I mean, those 2 knockouts versus, fucking on the rise star with all the momentum in the world. And this is his shot that he's, pretty much wanted since he's, came into the UFC. I think Lopes gets him, man, and it breaks my heart because I'm a big Volkanovski fan, but I can't shake that feeling that Lopes is going to start fast and he's going to hurt Volk, and he's probably going to do it early. I think it's in the first round. If it does go to the second round, I still like Lopes' chance for a knockout, and even into the third. After that, I don't know if Lopes has that cardio. I mean, we've seen him fade a couple times, but I think with Dan Ige, the fucking poor guy had to make 3 different weight classes within 24 hours, and that will drain the shit out of you. Especially because I heard he had made weight, rehydrated, had to cut weight, rehydrate, and then cut weight again. So we can almost excuse that, but we haven't seen him go 5 full rounds like that. So you have to assume that Volkanovski's gonna have that advantage if the fight does reach the 4th and 5th round. Volkanovski's been there, done that for pretty much his entire fucking UFC career. So if Lopes doesn't get him out of there in 3 rounds, I think Volk will take over and pretty much dominate the later rounds. But like I said, it hurts my soul to say it, but I think Lopes is going to knock him out. And I think, God help us all, but I think we might watch Volk retire. I think if he takes a third, bad knockout loss in a row like that at, fucking 36 years old, he's been on top of the division forever. He's probably going to go down as the featherweight GOAT. he has nothing left to prove to anybody. I know he wants to win that title back, but if he does take another bad loss, the odds of him getting back into the picture are probably slim, and I think he knows that. So this might be the last time we see Volk, and it's kind of sad, but such is life. Fighters age out; they make way for these new up and coming, hungry younger guys. So reluctantly, I think Lopes is gonna get him knocked out in the first couple rounds. So that's my pick. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you guys watching. If you don't mind, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you're thinking down in the comment section, where you agree, where you disagree. Like I said, I love hearing feedback. I love having those conversations. It kind of drives me to do better when I start interacting with other people in this community, and see where they're seeing it, and what they're thinking and where they're coming from when they're looking at these fights. So it just kind of opens up that new perspective. So I love you guys commenting, and even if it's on X or on my YouTube channel or wherever it may be, let me know what you're thinking, and I will see you guys next time.